So I started getting harassed around the time of the royal wedding. The moment that people knew I disagreed with some things about my sisters.
I grew up as an only child, and I wished I had siblings.
It's like everything. It's lie upon lie upon lie.
Hello to all my gorgeous, good-looking friends. You are tuning into TRG's series covering the Markle vs. Markle defamation lawsuit. If you are new to the channel, welcome. For those who are returning, thank you for coming back and supporting my work. I'm always grateful to have this like-minded community to discuss the beloved royal family and the cultural impact of its members on society, particularly in America. Okay, before I get into this, let me just put the disclaimer. I am not a legal expert. I am simply just reading what's in the public court files and giving my interpretation and observations / opinions. Please do your own research and come to your own conclusion. We officially have an update dated October 3rd by Meghan Markle, who is now continuing to keep the judge busy with all her BS. And yesterday, we see that she has requested the judge take into consideration another case to help get her defamation lawsuit dismissed from her sister Samantha. We're going to go through this and call out the BS and show how, once again, Meghan is trying to add more stuff onto the judge's plate to overwhelm her in order to manipulate getting this case dismissed. Let's get started. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about or would like a refresher, check out the playlist that I've set up. This is covering every step of the way of this lawsuit between Meghan Markle and her sister Samantha. I would highly recommend watching the last two videos just to catch yourself up to speed on what exactly Meghan has been doing in bombarding the judge with these frivolous exercises to go through. One thing that I've done in order to help us follow this better is on the thumbnails, you'll notice either Samantha's face is on it or Meghan's face is on it. And that's to tell you as to who made the next action. So obviously in this video, it's going to be Meghan's face on the thumbnail because she is the one who took this action. Just so people understand who is doing what in a small way, if that makes any kind of sense. So to show you what a pain in the butt Meghan has been, this is a log of every action that has been taken since Samantha amended her complaint back in April. As you can see, everything in yellow is what was submitted by Meghan's camp. Everything in blue is what has been submitted by Samantha's camp. And everything in gray is everything that the judge and the court system has put in. As you can see, Meghan has twice as many entries as Samantha does. Just shows you the kind of activity. The double amount of activity is kind of interesting since Meghan's lawyer, Michael Kump, had stated that they will give it the minimum attention necessary, which is all it deserves. It sure looks like they're putting a lot more attention on this. Perhaps this lawsuit isn't so absurd and baseless as they thought. So here's the additional work that Meghan is putting on the judge's plate. She wants the judge to look at this notice of supplemental authority regarding the September 27, 2023 opinion issued by Chief Judge Timothy J. Corrigan of the Middle District of Florida, granting defendants motions to dismiss the First Amendment complaint containing Florida state law, defamation, and defamation by implication claims without leave to amend. Now, keep in mind, this is an opinion piece that they're making the judge look at and consider in making her decision on dismissing Samantha's case. So let's take a look at the case that Meghan's team now wants to inundate the judge to go over and evaluate in order to get this case dismissed. So they're referring to the Reed versus Chambly defamation lawsuit, in which Golf's Patrick Reed has filed a defamation lawsuit against the Golf Channel and analyst Brandel Chambly for misreporting information with falsity and or reckless disregard of truth. So in this case, you can look at it as Patrick Reed being Samantha Markle and Brandel being Meghan. So a little background on this case as to what happened. So back in September of 2022, Patrick Reed had filed a lawsuit alleging conspiracy, defamation, injurious falsehood, and tortious interference, and that the defenders acted in concert as joint tortfeasors. Specifically, Reed sued Golfweek and its parent company, Eamon Lynch, a Golfweek columnist, and Golf Channel employees Brandel Chamblay, which is who we're talking about, Damon Hack, and Shane Bacon. The lawsuit centered around Patrick Reed's move from the PGA Tour to the LIV Golf Series and the narrative surrounding the rival tour and its affiliation with the Saudis. So, Patrick Reed's lawyer, Larry Klayman, gave the rationale behind this lawsuit by saying the PGA Tour and its partner, the NBC's Golf Channel's mission is to destroy a top LIV Golf Tour player. So, essentially, taking down its competition. And it is alleged in the actual complaint that these calculated malicious attacks created hate, aided and abetted a hostile workplace environment, and have caused substantial financial and emotional damage and harm to Mr. Reed and his family. So these are the claims that were put in this defamation lawsuit. Now, fast forward, on September 27th, the judge in this case decides to issue an order to have this case dismissed with prejudice, meaning thrown out. So now let's go back and see why Megan thinks this ruling should be applied to her. So it says here in bullet number 2, specifications of early papers, that the authority supplements, the above authority supplements Megan's arguments at page 5, footnote number 2 of the pending motion to dismiss the third amended complaint, document 74, the motion, B, page 6, lines 5 through 19 of the motion, and C, page 14, line 16 through page 15, line 15 of the motion, and D, page 15, line 16 through page 17, line 5 of the motion. Okay, let's take a look at what they're talking about. So the first one that they're calling attention to is this footnote where it says the court recently held that defamation by implication claims should be analyzed under the same actual malice/negligence framework as traditional defamation claims. Item B says the concept of betrayal, meanwhile, is even more clearly an opinion, with the Middle District Court finding that it is certainly defendant's opinion that plaintiff Samantha Markle had engaged in spin, lying, and betrayal of the heirs. Then it continues on where it says, statement number 2, I grew up as an only child and wish I had siblings, recognizing that the court already held that plaintiff, Samantha, cannot plausibly disprove defendant's opinion of her own childhood. Plaintiff, Samantha, argues that in context of the other statements about Samantha, this statement was a denial that Samantha played a part in her life and her upbringing. Docket number 72, emphasis added, it was no such thing, but regardless, the inference is not defamatory, because whether Samantha played a part in her life and her upbringing, which she did not, is equally unfalsifiable. Bullet C. If you scroll down, statements number 8, 11 through 15 are not directed to plaintiff, aka Samantha. First, the vast majority of the statements at issue are not about plaintiff at all. For example, perhaps the most troubling part of this is the number of British journalism interacting with and amplifying the hate and the lies. Docket number 72, 49, statement 11, a statement actually made by Prince Harry, is plainly about British journalists. Similarly, plaintiff Samantha was not among the housewives referenced by Boozy in statement number 8. This is not your everyday trolling. It's insane. And it was done by people who were just not the typical quote-unquote trolls. These are housewives. These are middle-aged Caucasian women creating just constant attacks. Docket number 7249, statement 8, emphasis added. This much is clear from the surrounding footage of YouTube personalities, none of whom are plaintiff Samantha, attacking Megan. Likewise, Boozy does not accuse plaintiff Samantha of using the N-word. And the racist tweet that is featured is not identifiable as coming from plaintiff's suspended account, unlike other tweets by plaintiff Samantha, which are. Now, finally, bullet D, it says, nor finally is plaintiff Samantha identified as one of the main or even secondary hate accounts, statements 12 through 14. Indeed, the immediately preceding footage refers to 83 accounts, precludes a defamation claim as a matter of law. In order for the group defamation to be actionable by a member of that group, when there is no specific reference to a member, the group must be small enough for the defamation to be reasonably understood to refer to that member. Scrolling down a little further to bullet point B, statements number 8 through 10 and 12 to 14 are not defamatory. Second, the remainder of Boozy's statements are not defamatory as a matter of law, such as statement number 8, in quotes. So this is not your everyday trolling. It's insane. Florida appellate courts have held that references to a defendant as a quote-unquote crook and a criminal, or a raving maniac and raving idiot, are non-actionable expressions of opinion. Referencing Hay versus Independent newspapers, it says, and in one of, if not the only case about the actionability of the term troll, not a copyright or patent troll, an appellate court held that while the statement was unflattering, it did not defame Nicholas's business or his product, in the case Nicholas versus Canali. The three statements ascribing motivations to the hate accounts, that they are avaricious or racist, are also not defamatory. As noted above, plaintiff Samantha's supposed greed is pure opinion. Meanwhile, a Middle District Court held that the statement that the Confederate flag is a racist symbol and that those who display it are racist is pure opinion that cannot support an action for defamation. In the case of Tillett versus BJ Wholesale Club, similarly, statements that a person is racist are clearly expressions of opinion that cannot be proven verifiably true or false. So what Meghan's lawyers are doing here in this waste of time exercise is attempting to try and break this nexus, showing that the Netflix mockumentary and the things that Meghan said in the Oprah interview all are separated and not compounded together, meaning that, shavings make a pile, if you could look at it that way. I believe that they are trying to confuse this judge, making it difficult for her to follow what has really happened, and showing this snowball effect of all these different elements that Meghan had in process, allegedly, to defame her sister, causing her harm. Remember, in proving defamation, all four of these criteria must be met. 1, false statement purporting to be fact. 2, publication or communication of that statement to a third person. 3, fault amounting to at least negligence. And 4, damages and harm caused. All four of these criteria must be met in order to win a case for defamation. So by them starting to pull out and separate the nexus, they're looking to knock at least one of these down. So you've got Meghan saying that she grew up as an only child. Okay, no, that's no longer a statement purporting to be fact, but now it's an opinion because that's how she felt growing up. Even if Samantha was in her life, Meghan could totally have blocked it out, and that's how she felt, and that was her opinion. Then going into Boozy's statements where he didn't directly name Samantha, even though the montage and the editing did compound it together to give the person who is watching it to draw that conclusion that Samantha was a racist. And now they're saying that racism and being called a racist is purely opinion. Sure, and I would have to agree that yes, it is opinion, but that opinion then was taken further by action caused by Boozy and Meghan's Sussex squad. I think once you cross that line to go ahead and try to get people canceled, as well as threaten them online and even threaten them physically in person, then that crosses the line from being just opinion now to intentionally trying to harm someone and ruining their reputation. This is where I think, in my opinion, Samantha needs to be stronger in showing how these people online have targeted her, as well as the connections between Boozy, Meghan, the Sussex squad, and the money. Now, going back to this busy work, there are 4 areas that they want the judge to look at within the Patrick Reed case. In my opinion, the way that they quoted from this order that was released on the 27th is very manipulative and also kind of sloppy. Megan's really trying to make more work for this judge. The way that they have quoted this, it's you really have to dig into the actual document to see where it's being cited, forcing the judge to actually read these 78 pages to understand the context in order to see if it applies to what they're stating in their motion to dismiss. It's a lot of back and forth, and quite frankly, it does appear that they are trying to confuse this judge. So the really sneaky thing that they did here, and I see where they're moving towards, is putting Samantha in now and being considered as a public figure. It says here, according to what they're citing, according to this Reed versus Chambly case, they quote, holding that all three types of defamation, including defamation by implication, also require a plaintiff to plead and prove actual malice if he is a public figure. So, in other words, they are putting this out there to say that yes, Samantha too is a public figure, and she actually is the one that has to prove this malice. So now the question becomes, what constitutes as being a public figure? I mean, the Markles have been thrown into the spotlight by Meghan, not because they wanted to be thrown into the spotlight, but because of Meghan's unique circumstance of marrying this dumb prince. This quotation says, holding that whether a person aligns himself with another is an amorphous expression that cannot be proven or disproven, and that an alleged statement about plaintiff's motivations also constitutes opinion, as it is defendant's subjective assessment of plaintiff and his colleagues' conduct, and is not readily capable of being true or false. Now, obviously, this is supposed to align with Meghan's statement of being raised as an only child. I think Samantha at this point will have to show more receipts to show that she was involved in Meghan's growing up at home during the period that she was living with them. I think that's truly an important piece to this. If Meghan wants to block out her sister completely, then add that onto the list of things that Meghan has done, such as not calling her sister back and telling her not to speak to the press, or at least helping her in guiding her through this whole PR manipulation that was going on. Now, when you look at these last two bullets that they want the judge to focus on, I think this was the dumbest thing they could have done, because what Samantha's team could do, and if I were her and if I, had to choose what to do in this situation, I would use this case and flip it back on them. And here's what I mean by that. Christopher Boozy is on record by saying that Samantha Markle was part of the group who was putting out disinformation. Now, I think Samantha should challenge that statement that Christopher Boozy made about her putting out disinformation, as well as those 11 accounts that they sent to Twitter in order to pull down. I mean, if she didn't set those up, theoretically, this is painting her in a false impression of her being part of this hate group, in which, following up, Christopher Boozy specifically states, how can the half-sister of Meghan be a part of the hate group? Christopher Boozy specifically said it was about hate and race, and me, as the average Joe watcher, I interpreted incorporating Samantha into the mix with his analysis. And I also think, too, that at the end of the day, Meghan had the final say on this Netflix mockumentary on what went in and what stayed out. So there is no way in getting out of her saying that she didn't know that Christopher Boozy was going to say these things about her sister. That's a lie. She had final approval on this. So I think it's important that Samantha continues to keep pushing back on that, because the ultimate person who had control was Meghan. I'll never forget, in the Oprah interview at the very end, Meghan says, life is about storytelling. Well, when we look at this mockumentary, what exactly do you think she was doing? She was storytelling. She was trying to convey a narrative and push out a message for people to receive and believe. Now, this storytelling that she was telling happened to involve her sister in presenting her in a certain way that made her look like she was part of a hate group. and was being malicious against her sister with these troll accounts. When you look deeper into the way that they manipulated the footage, the way that they blurred certain things out, and combine that with the visuals and the music, it was designed to manipulate the audience. And this, I think, is so important for Samantha to keep this together and make sure that her lawyers hopefully can communicate that essence, because right now what this legal team is trying to do, and they've been doing this from day one, is trying to separate everything to at least break down that all four of those bullet points in proving defamation can't be proven. In my opinion, where Megan really showed her true colors and her intentions on what she was doing with this narrative and her sister was when she said in the Oprah interview she changed her name back to Markle only when I started dating Harry. Megan knew that Samantha was writing a book and it was soon to be published, and painted her sister just by saying this as an opportunist. What better way to kill Samantha's credibility in the truth that she was writing in her book than to paint her sister as being non present in her life and barely knowing her? This was all calculated, this was all strategic, and Megan knew exactly what she was doing. From what I can see from everything that Samantha has said and all the lies and inconsistencies that Megan has said, you can clearly see that there definitely was a plan surrounding campaigning against shutting her sister down. And even if it meant putting her sister in physical harm's way due to the lunatics out there that follow Megan and possibly even paid by Megan, in my opinion, Megan was reckless and negligent. She had no regard for her sister's well being, considering that she is disabled, and the stress and pressure that was being put on her from all facets. We have the newspapers, the online media, the various tabloids, all these people working in the PR Sussex machine to essentially take her family down. I think is sick, it's twisted, and quite frankly, she should be held accountable for it in a court of law. Samantha's safety was being jeopardized, and Megan knew this, and at no point did Megan stand up to tell her rabid dog fans to stop it. At no point did she step in and help her sister out, whether it be by shelling out a couple dollars to protect her home. She allowed these attacks to continue because she was behind it. There's no other way to say it. She was behind it. And we know this is true because we saw those emails from Jason Knopf. You see, I don't think Megan's lawyers realize what they did here by bringing this case in as supplemental information. And the reason why I say that is that this document, or this order that was issued on September 27th, really gives the blueprint to win this case for defamation. All Samantha has to do is really back into what this order says should have been for this guy, Patrick Reed, and correct whatever mistakes this guy, Patrick Reed, did in her case. And I think now is the time that she needs to beef up her evidence and submit it in order to show that she really does have a case here, because what happened to her was wrong. So far from following this case, in my opinion, I don't think, and this is, just my opinion, I don't think Samantha has put out a strong enough case to show how affected she was from a mental standpoint, a physical standpoint. She needs to play up on how badly she suffered from the trolls, the stress of people threatening her. That evidence needs to come forward. And I think the judge needs to get a peek into what Samantha has been really dealing with these maniacs that Megan either has been supporting, funding. I mean, all of this stuff needs to come out, and we need to go to discovery. But I think now is the time. Samantha, you need to throw out something that's going to catch the judge's attention, because all of this noise that Megan is throwing in there is really going to distract her away from whittling down how severe this was for her. And this is just my opinion and the way that I see it. You can tell that Megan does not want this to move forward. Otherwise, she wouldn't be spending all this money to have her lawyers throw stuff to distract this judge. So hopefully Samantha will agree, and hopefully somebody on her team sees this to consider some of the suggestions that the public is making, being that we have been following this from the very beginning. Anyhow, I'm going to leave it at that. But what do you guys think? I mean, do you think that Meghan is being a pain in the ass? Do you think that this is going to get dismissed? Definitely leave your thoughts below. And you know it. I will be close to this. And as always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe. And I will talk to you later. Bye.
No, I was attacked. I am a victim.
Seriously?
Such a fraud.